Hey guys, I just made this whole video and then the Canon camera decided to delete it all, which is upsetting, but let's go ahead and remake it. This is probably the most important video I'll ever make again. Okay, so this video, oh my God, I can't believe I just recorded all. It was like an hour of footage or something, and I just, maybe it's karma. I don't know. Maybe like life is constantly trying to teach me lessons through suffering. Spicy suffering. Anyway, so today's video was and is about thoughts and feelings, specifically my way of looking at the world and how other people who look at the world this way maybe could improve themselves through my horrible example. So for a long time, I felt like nothing mattered but the truth. Like if you had the truth on your side, that was really everything. Like you constantly see me preaching, in old tweets or whatever about the truth always wins. And if you're on the side of the truth, that's all that matters. And it's just, the old outro of Onision Speaks was, we are not robots, we are not slaves, we are Banana Nation, right? Some people thought it said, we are not snakes, which, maybe we're snake bananas. I don't know. But the point is that the first thing, we are not robots, was the thing that I missed. Because when you're talking to human beings, you do not talk to them like they're robots. And for a very long time, I omitted the human factor of my videos for the sake of being black and white, i.e. looking at the world as if it was black and white. The problem with this is that you hurt a lot of feelings along the way when you do this. And rather than running away from the internet and not taking accountability, it's important for me personally so I can sleep better at night and for the general community of the world to see somebody who made mistakes and is willing to face it. I used to have a forum where people posted whatever. Literally, you guys decided my videos. Literally. So like if a topic that I started, is Christianity dumb or something like that, like would be a topic that people might start. That's a question mark. I'm not saying it is. But people would start a topic about that. And if it got so many replies, I would make a video about that topic. So I insulted a lot of Christians as a result. And some people would start topics like, am I fat or not? And I would tell a lot of people whether or not I thought they were fat. Some people will look at that and say, that's totally fine. People asked if they're fat or not, and you told them. Wrong. Okay, that's very wrong. The reason is that you don't understand feelings. If I am ugly, and everyone my whole life has told me that I'm ugly, and I go to a YouTuber who I watch and I like, and I say, hey, am I ugly? The last thing I want to hear is that YouTuber go, yeah, you're ugly. Did I think about that? No, not for a second. I didn't even remotely consider that. I was just being out there like, if I tell the truth, everything's fine. Are you insane, former me? Like, are you a crazy person? There are people who looked up to me and they wanted my quote unquote honest opinion. And I thought, if I give them my honest opinion, everything will be fine. No. It's not fine. It's not okay. And if somebody who's fat by societal standards, like medically obese, which by the way, medically obese, the bar's a little low on that. Some people are perfectly healthy and they're medically obese. I don't know what's up with that, but I let a lot of people down, an overwhelming amount of people down, and I hurt a lot of feelings. Life is not life without feelings. And so you can go around saying, I told the truth, so there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot wrong with that because of the fact that you're not considering the human factor. Human beings have thoughts and emotions, and these things combined make life an experience, an adventure, a wonderful thing. When you put out negativity in the world, or you as someone people look up to state, hey, everyone who called you fat or everyone who called you ugly, they're right. That's not acceptable in the sense that you could have just crushed someone's feelings and their dreams or their hopes. Or they might hate you forever as a result, because denial is also a powerful thing that human beings have. It's part of that whole ego thing. We all naturally self-preserve. We all naturally prioritize ourselves. Most people do, at least. And so when it comes to burning bridges, making enemies, and so forth, telling someone the truth about what they are or what you perceive them to be can be quite possibly the worst thing ever. But you shouldn't lie at the same time either. There are ways to not tell someone the worst possible thing and still be honest. You could say, I don't want to comment on people's physical appearance. It's not worth the video views. I don't want to hurt people's feelings. And that's it. And that's kind of the problem, right? Because social media rewards negativity. So people become more and more and more negative, feeling validated by the likes, the views, etc. And social media makes people monsters. It's not one site, it's all social media. And I'm embarrassed by what social media influenced me to do and say. I'm embarrassed by how I was rewarded by the worst aspects of human interests. People love to see each other fail and suffer and so forth. It's all a big joke, but nobody's thinking about the hurt people along the way. Me personally, I'm thinking about the hurt people along the way because I'm trying to get more in touch with my feelings, like a lot of people complain that men don't do. I'm trying to get in more touch with the people who care about me, my fans and so forth. And yes, I do still have fans. And that's incredible. You know, that's amazing that I still have fans. Not a lot, but I have them. Anyway, so another thing I used to do a lot is beef with other YouTubers. I would sabotage friendships and so forth over ego. I ruined one of my most valuable friendships ever over the 2016 election because someone voted independent and I was mad at them. There's a lot of things that I've done in my life that I sit here with overwhelming remorse, and all I can do is say, hey, I messed up. We want to talk about the truth. This is the truth. I'm embarrassed by my behavior before, and I want to do whatever I can to make it right. Okay. So one of the examples is when people would say, hey, can you make this video on Christianity? Instead of saying, oh yeah, I'll make a video on Christianity and tell everyone why the most important thing in the world to them is stupid. You know, God and such. And when you look at it like that, like a lot of us would look at someone saying, oh, an atheist telling Christians they're stupid. Let's look at the facts and the science and laugh at all the morons, right? That's how you guys would approach the topic. When really, that's actually terrible. It's terrible to look at people and say, all your faith, all your belief is stupid. It doesn't make sense and you suck. It would make more sense to say, hey, we should not use faith to condemn gay people or condemn trans people or whatever. You know, some relationships today are completely and utterly societally recognized as a totally legit thing, like gay marriage and transgenders being recognized for their gender and so forth. And those people should be protected. And yet religion sometimes attacks those people, which is why we should separate those attacking from those not, and not group them all together as if they're all part of the same beast. It's kind of like, you know, if you use the internet, but there are sites on the internet where people poop on each other, which are not okay, in my opinion. If you do it, I'm not trying to judge you. I'm just saying, in my opinion, it's not okay because it's unhealthy. There's risks, medical risks. And personally, I'm not interested in poo-poo. That should be the clip for this whole video. I'm not interested in poo-poo. But the point is, like, just because there's a lot of like horrible stuff on the internet, like people pooping on each other, doesn't mean you support that. You know what I mean? So people who are religious, just because there's bad things in the thousands of words that are in the Bible, doesn't mean all the good goes away. So there's a lot of things where people will say, I'm being honest when they're just being a jerk. I did that a lot, where they would say, or I would be like, religion is stupid, and if you believe this, you're no better than a child who believes in Santa Claus. Okay? Just because you just told something that could be perceived as your honest opinion doesn't mean it was smart, and it doesn't mean it was actually part of the truth, the true truth. Because truth is where you don't have bias. And we all have bias. All of us. So if we all have bias, then it's almost like you have to have things peer reviewed before they're deemed the truth. And even then, the peers could be corrupt. Like you could say, gravity exists. That could be argued. It really could, because people could say that there are things that pull us to the earth that aren't gravity. You could say that we every day walk out and breathe oxygen. But then someone could say, do we breathe oxygen, or are we in the Matrix? Reality itself is debatable. And that's when you may find yourself going, okay, you say that you tell the truth and yada, 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 but it sounds like what you're doing is you're using what you know about the world and you're conveying that to other people when everything could be fake. Life is a mind F. Like it is crazy how we can psych ourselves out to think that we're actually just in one big video game right now. But this is getting, way too deep, way too off topic, right? To get back on topic, a lot of people have thrown themselves at me as far as saying, you're this, you're that, screaming at me and so forth. And that's an example of just another person who thinks they're right and other people are wrong without actually being willing to have a discussion with them. And that's the thing, is when you make enemies, or when you try to act like you're right, or you just go into a debate screaming, you're going to lose a lot of rational people. You're going to lose a lot of people who actually are calm, normal, functional human beings, because nobody wants to hear you talking about how someone else is a moron and you're a genius, or how someone else is the worst thing ever and you're the best thing ever, and you're morally superior and they're morally inferior and they've done everything bad and you only do good things, etc. That's not the person I want to be. And that's not something I want to participate in. I understand there's overwhelming reward, monetarily, attention-wise, and so forth, for pointing fingers and making enemies and treating the entire internet like it's a WWE wrestling pre-fight speech. But that's not reality, that's a fiction, just like WWE is a fiction. Those guys aren't really punching each other, otherwise they'd all be in comas. Ultimately, the message I want you to hear and understand is that I am a person full of regret. I'm a person who's made many mistakes in my life. And most importantly, I'm a person who used to think that the truth was all that mattered. And the truth is not everything. I used an analogy in the last video where I said, you think that the chocolate chips in a cookie are the most important part. So to make chocolate chip cookies, you put chocolate chips on a cookie tray and cook it. But then when you're done, you just have a bunch of melted chocolate on a cookie tray. You think the truth is all that matters, but the truth not accompanied by compassion, consideration, intelligence, it's just a big, disgusting mess. So for anyone out there who thinks, I'm going to make a video, or I'm going to talk to my mom, or I'm going to shout at my son or something like that about how I know that this is the law and therefore I'm not talking to you anymore, like with drugs, for example. I used to do that a lot. Not drugs. I used to kick people out of my life for them doing drugs. And, I don't know how things would be if I was more tolerant of people and them breaking the law. I can't stomach it, right? Because I'm a former Air Force cop. And so when I see someone breaking the law, I get really upset. But the thing is that just because someone made up a rule about substances that you put in your body doesn't mean that person should be harassed or insulted or anything because of that rule that was made up. It's actually upsetting that weed used to be illegal when people decided to make it legal later. Because the problem is that you had people who were like me demonizing people for doing weed because it was illegal. And then you find out that the law has changed, and then you're like, well, they didn't obey the law back then. Like when I was 14, I had a girlfriend who smoked weed, and I broke up with her because I found out she was breaking the law. The law to me was the truth. I was like Judge Dredd, you know? If it's against the law, don't do it, period. That's the way I looked at everything. And that creates a lot of barriers between you, right? But I also care about what's right and what's wrong. Like morally. And I think it's morally wrong to punish someone for breaking a law that wasn't even serious. And that law was weed being illegal. You guys had a law. I'm talking like the older people now, like the 60 plus year olds. You guys had a law where you made weed illegal. And then you decided to make it legal. That's you, from some people's perspective, admitting you were wrong and you punished people for doing nothing wrong. If weed would be legalized later, you had little boys like me convinced that weed is the worst thing in the world because it was against the law, and you're putting people in jail for like, what, 40 years in some cases for being distributors or whatever. If you made a law saying that's okay now, nothing changed except for your statement. That's like if I, for years, said, this person's a murderer, this person's a murderer, this person's a murderer. And then one day I'm just like, no, they're not a murderer. They're fine. You were saying weed people were criminals. You were saying that people who did weed people. You were saying that people who smoked weed were criminals and monsters and so forth. Like you were conveying that message to the general public. And then one day you're like, just kidding, they're fine. They're not a bad person. So I'm apologizing, obviously, because I dumped a lot of people for doing weed, for smoking weed illegally. When it turns out the law on that situation was apparently not genuine. And so I destroyed relationships with people who knew that the law was nonsense because I prioritized the law over human beings, the truth over human beings. My moral code was, if it's legal, that's the rule. If it's not legal, you're terrible for violating it. That's, when people say James, I think you might be autistic. Can I really argue with them? I don't know much about autism. Like as far as, the different, because there's it's a huge spectrum. Okay. There's so many types of autism. I haven't done the research. But let's wrap this up. There's a lot of powerful, profound shit in this video. Damn it. I was trying not to cuss. But ultimately, the point of this video is I have made overwhelming mistakes. I have demonized people who shouldn't have been demonized at all. Because turns out they were right. And I was wrong. Because I played by the rules and they didn't. But turns out the rules now say they're fine. So I'm embarrassed. And also with telling people whether they're fat or not because they ask me. I'm embarrassed by that. It's terrible. There's a lot of things that, when you make videos every day for a decade, there's a lot of things that I've said that I don't agree with anymore. That's what happens when you talk too much. You say things that you might not agree with later on. And you definitely say things that people can take out of context. It's the easiest thing in the world. Not literally. Breathing is easier than that. That's literal. That's an example of my really chaotic personality. But I'm going to make more videos like this, and I hope you guys are willing to listen to me tomorrow or whenever I post again. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I just want to emphasize I'm very sorry for all the feelings I've hurt. I have hurt feelings all the time. So if that's any comfort, it's not like I feel good about hurting people's feelings. It's not like I'm living the dream right now. I'm hurting too. So I'm sorry for how you feel. I can relate. I'm sorry that there were people who looked up to me and they wanted someone to tell them that they're not fat in the world, and they were hoping it would be their favorite YouTuber at the time. And I let them down. I shouldn't have even commented on it. All right. I hope one day you can forgive me for hurting your guys' feelings. Because I have them too. And I know what it's like. We are not robots. Bye.